everyone, welcome back. This week's topic is on artificial intelligence, AI, and assistive technology in special education. In this video, we are going to evaluate current and emerging tools in both AI and AT relevant to students with disabilities. We're also going to look at some of the ethical and equity-based considerations and implications AI may be having in special education, and we'll identify some practical applications that support individualized instruction and access. Now, before we dive into anything, I'm going to start with my perspective, and I want to be upfront about where I'm coming from on this topic. I am an expert in special education. I am not an expert in AI. When it comes to AI, I would be considered a basic consumer, a classroom level, everyday user. The reason I bring this up is because when the AI tools started to become so readily available to the public, my formal introduction to AI was at a ULP faculty group where library personnel were showing us how to use it and some early access tools and starting these conversations. And I just remember being so incredibly impressed, amazed at how quickly these tools could do things that I've never really seen technology do before. Again, I'm not a technology person, technology expert in any way. And well, then time passes, right? It's been a couple of years. The awe has worn off. It's a little bit more normalized over time because it became so available and so accessible to people. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with my oldest niece. She and I used to FaceTime every so often so I could help her with her homework. And at some point, she's growing up, but I realized it'd been a while since we talked or that she's asked me for help in her homework. So the next time we talk, I asked her how she's doing and how the homework's going. And she tells me she doesn't really need any more homework help. And she asked if I wanted to see how she's been doing her homework lately. It's like, yeah, sure. Show me what cool things you know. She shares her screen and pulls up ChatGPT on her phone and just gives it the full prompt for her 8th grade English essay. And I just remember I had to sit with this for a little bit because in that moment, I was wearing two hats where I normally just wear the one hat. That main hat being I'm an aunt. I am first and foremost my niece's aunt, and I care about her privacy in disclosing this information to me. I care about respecting her and being able to have a conversation here. And I care about our relationship. But I am also a teacher first and foremost. They're all first and foremost. And I can't stand idly by while I watch a kid dig themselves into a hole. They don't even know what they're doing without saying something or trying something. And so in that moment, aunt and teacher become one. And my niece doesn't know me as a teacher. I'm just Herthia Belkis. And this was a new experience for the two of us here. The conversation we ended up having really ended up sticking with me because I have also since heard many similar statements from other students and youth who are using AI for school. And she said, it's so easy. I just do all the writing for me and I don't even have to bother because I already know this stuff. And my response was, how can you prove that you know any of it? Because you haven't written it, you've never tried, but you believe you have the skill. And I think it's great that you have such great belief in yourself. But where is the proof to back that up? Where is the skill actually so that people can see that you have this skill, so that we can assess that you have the skill? We went back and forth. And it's been a while since I've been in a classroom with teenagers. So arguing with a 14-year-old who knows everything in the world, it took stamina. And to be honest, I have no idea where we fully landed because she's like, I'll never use AI again. Thanks for letting me know. Like, okay, sure, you'll never use AI again. Who knows? But AI, it still exists. The temptation and ease of having something so quick to do it for you, it's only an unlock screen and one voice command away. And now AI is integrated into parts of her schooling. Her school uses AI in some curriculum packages. So it's complicated, to say the least. It's like the first time like the light bulb actually turned on about what AI might be doing. So there are summed up two very different perspectives out there right now on AI and technology in the lives of young people. Some people argue that AI could be one of the most positive transformations education has ever seen, and is going to give every student access to something like a personal tutor and free up teachers to focus on the human side of teaching. Others raise real concerns about what we might be losing as screens and AI take up more and more space in how kids learn and think and connect with each other in the outside world. So unlike some of the other topics in this course and throughout your program, I'm not asking you to pick a side and defend it for this topic. I am instead asking you to sit with both sides, because that is what is actually happening in schools right now. Some teachers and districts are leaning really hard into AI tools, and others are pulling back and setting strict limits. Both groups have reasons for what they're doing. And as a special educator, you're going to need to form your own professional stance. And it's one that is going to have to be informed by both the possibilities and the concerns. So with that in mind, let's look at AI. So specific to education, AI has the potential to enhance accessibility for students, which should support more equitable access to education resources and to education in general. And I say the word should there with some emphasis because this is still new technology. Nothing about AI is foolproof or perfected. But given time, I think we'll likely see some real advances in equitable access for students who have different learning needs. The tools that currently exist have the potential and can possibly promote inclusivity in learning environments because they allow for customized learning experiences. They are built and can continuously be tweaked and in a faster manner to be tailored to individual needs. One of the bigger advances I've seen with AI is in communication. Speech recognition tools have improved exponentially in a short amount of time, and they promote effective communication, which is an area of need for many students with or without disabilities. For students who have the capacity to communicate, but maybe not verbally or in writing, AI has been integrated into tools that really advance a student's ability to communicate, and it increases access to learning and social engagement. Something that isn't maybe getting talked about as much is the predictive side of AI and its relation to education. When we feed information into these tools like patterns and test scores, what students are getting right and wrong, the tools can help break down skill levels and suggest areas for early intervention. This is something teachers are already doing and using to many degrees of success. AI can help cut down on what the time it takes to do analysis or to find interventions that support what the analysis says. Now, that was just one side, right? Now, let's look behind the curtain just a little bit, because everything I described in the previous slide sounds great. There's so much potential, and it can all genuinely be great. But we also need to be honest about both sides of the conversation, because we are just beginning to see research about how heavy reliance on AI tools can affect things like critical thinking and attention and independent problem-solving skills, especially in young people whose brains are still developing. And I'm emphasizing here the word just beginning to see, just here, because this is all very early reportings. We do not have a full picture yet. What we are gathering from is early research and also perspectives from people in the field, teachers, parents, all educators in school buildings, whoever is working with children. They are reporting what they're seeing in relation to AI. And they're raising some real questions about over-reliance. Let's suppose a student leans on an AI tool for everything. Are they actually building the skill underneath, or are they bypassing it? And if they're bypassing it, I want you to think about where that underneath skill is going to show up next for that student. Where will that skill come up in that student's life where AI it can't step in and do it for them? What happens then? This makes me think a lot about when you're a kid and you're sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, and if you were me, you're working through a math problem and it's just not clicking, and I'm banging my head on the table and I'm crying out of frustration, and my parents and I are fighting. It's horrible. It's a whole thing. Not an uncommon story for some kids. And it's when they're learning in school and something isn't just perfect. It's frustrating. It is tough. It is hard sometimes. But those moments are incredibly important for kids because it teaches them struggle. It teaches them what the outcome is if you continue in the struggle and push through. And that's not just about that assignment that the student has to do. It's something the underneath skill, that bigger thing is happening, is that the student is learning that hard things can be overcome. They're building tolerance for difficulty. They're discovering that they can sit with frustration, they can feel their feelings, but they can come out on the other side. And that's the underneath skill, that skill of not giving up when things get hard, the skill that ends up being so important from little things to huge things in someone's life. For many, that skill starts at that kitchen table. I think we have to be honest with ourselves about what we might be shortcutting if AI is always available to smooth that moment over. Now, let's talk about the equity side of AI, because we need to push back on something I said in that previous slide. In the previous slide, I said that AI has the potential to make learning more equitable for students. That keyword there is potential. And I believe that. I look forward to something like that. But we also have to look at the bigger picture. We have to start with what equity means. Equity recognizes that each person has a different circumstance, and it allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. It is not about giving everyone the same thing. It is instead about giving each person what they specifically need to get to the same place. So if someone came and definitively said to me that AI has made education more equitable, great. I would want to immediately ask how. That's amazing. Tell me, because we need some proof there. And if the only proof that we are relying on is that technology exists that has the potential to help, that is not the same thing as saying that it can help or that it did help. A tool can exist. That alone does not create or enable equity. For AI to truly advance equity in education, a lot of conditions have to be in place first. Every student needs reliable access to the internet and to the technology required to use these tools. Students need to be taught how to use AI safely, critically, effectively. No student should be behind a paywall or find themselves stuck with a limited free version while a classmate with more resources can access something better. Schools and districts need to have thoughtful policies in place that actually protect young people. And those policies need to be grounded in research and evidence and not just enthusiasm for the new shiny technology. Teachers need real training, not a 1-hour PD session and a link to learn more, an actual training where you become adept at using the tools before your students do. School networks need to be strong enough to support these tools reliably. And every student, regardless of zip code, disability status, language background, family income, any other need, has to have a genuine shot at benefiting from what AI has to offer. And that is a very long list of conditions. And most of them are not universally in place right now. It is important to acknowledge that while AI has the potential to level the playing field, the reality right now is that it's not evenly distributed. And the gap between students who can access and navigate these tools and those who can't may actually be widening because of AI and not closing them at all. Layered on top of that are real concerns about data privacy, especially when student information is being fed into AI systems that families and educators don't fully understand yet. None of this means we throw the tools out or the idea out completely. I'm not saying that, but it does mean we use them thoughtfully, intentionally, and with our eyes open. And it means being honest with our students about both what the tools can do for them and what they cannot do for them and what it might cost them. So I will not be giving you a list of specific AI tools to explore, mostly because by the time you watch this, half of whatever I recommend may already be out of date or replaced by something newer or faster, shinier, cooler, more effective. That's just the reality and the pace of the AI fields right now. It's so moving incredibly fast. And a tool that might seem cutting edge today might be old news or completely updated in 6 months. So instead of handing you a list, I want to challenge you to go find one yourself. Pick an area where you think AI might help, whether that's communication, reading support, writing support, something else entirely. Spend a little time searching for what's out there right now. You might be surprised at how much exists if you haven't delved into this world very much, and also how much is changing and improving constantly. I also would say if you know that your students in particular are using any specific AI tools, I would recommend becoming familiar with those too. Maybe you'll also find use in it, maybe not, but you should recognize what the output of those tools looks like and sounds like. Now we're going to shift gears because I want to make sure we give some real time to assistive technology here. I also want to use it as a bit of a contrast to everything we have just talked about with AI. The last few slides when it comes to AI have left us with a lot of open questions, a lot of it could, it might, potentials, we're not sure yet. And there is uncertainty. That's all uncertainty. That is real, and we recognize that it exists. It's growing, it's huge, it's fast. We don't know everything yet. But as we move into assistive technology, AT, the conversation changes because assistive technology has been around much longer as a concept in education, and it is an integral part of the field of special education. And unlike what we're seeing with AI right now, there is also a substantial body of research behind different assistive technology tools, its place and its role in the field, and many more different perspectives to have. So when it comes to assistive technology as we know it, we are not operating on potential. We have evidence, and the distinction is very important. So assistive technology, as we know, refers to any device or software that helps students with disabilities perform tasks that might otherwise be difficult or inaccessible without that tool. What I love about AT is that it does not have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be connected to the internet. For example, a highlighter. It's, to me, genuinely the most underrated learning accommodation out there, and I stand by that. A student who has a wall of text in front of them needs to chunk it and focus on one section at a time, or if they need to identify what's more important, a highlighter can help them do all of that and more. It is simple, it's low cost, it is effective. That's assistive technology. A different common low-tech example is the communication board. You might hear them referred to as a core board or a PEX board. The difference between those comes down to communication style being used. Core boards use words, PEC boards use pictures. And that's just like a very big picture of what these communication boards are. I'll be the first to tell you that the individuals who specialize in augmented and alternative communication devices, or AAC, and those who also specialize in speech and communication support, they could definitely go much deeper on the types and the differences and the research behind them and the variations that exist and for whom they exist. But at their core, they're most basic. Both are examples of physical low-tech assistive technology tools that can help students communicate, learn, and engage with others and their environments. And then there are high-tech tools, and it takes that same version of the low-tech communication boards and puts it on a tablet with some robust software behind it, and suddenly you have something that can do significantly more in terms of vocabulary and customization, voice support, real-time communication support. It's amazing. So if we call back to something from those AI slides, that long list of conditions that would need to be in place for AI to truly advance equity in education. It was equal access to technology and policies that protect students, trained educators, it has research-backed systems, and so forth. And I did say that most of those conditions, they're not universally in place for AI right now. And that's really, I think, where the difference lies with AT tools in education, because many of those conditions have been built over decades. It has considered how assistive technology is accessed and delivered in schools. IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, gives students the legal right to assistive technology if it supports their educational needs. That means that there are policies in place, there are processes, there are teams who have to make deliberate decisions about which tools might support a student and how they will be supported in using them. There are training, there are protections, there are systems that families can turn to if their rights are not being honored. That did not happen overnight. It took years of advocacy, legislation, litigation, and research to build the infrastructure that now surrounds assistive technology in schools. And because of that infrastructure, we can say something with confidence that we can't yet say about AI. And that is that assistive tech supports diverse learning needs Assistive tech enhances independence. The more a student can use a tool effectively on their own, the more they can complete work and communicate without needing constant support from another person. AT assisted tech has been proven to improve educational access by enabling equal participation. These are not possibilities that we are talking of. There is research to back this up, and there are systems in place to help make it real for students. I'm also, another caveat, going to add, again, none of the systems in place are perfect. Not a thing of it is perfect, but they are in place and there is a structure. And when it comes to special education, students with disabilities, education in general, I'm going to personally be an advocate for structure over no structure. Now, does this mean that AI will never get there? No, not at all. What I think it means is that AI is still living in the possible. It is not yet in the factual. The possible is not nothing. The possible is actually where everything starts. It is completely possible that over time, AI's role in education will develop into a robust research base. It's already underway. More is needed. And it is completely possible that AI will be integrated thoughtfully into education policy and infrastructure. The teachers are clamoring and telling schools, the schools are telling districts, it's needed. It's already needed. It's underway in some form or fashion. Not yet figured out, but it's in progress. And it is possible that training systems will catch up and that the kinds of equity safeguards assistive technology has spent decades building will eventually surround AI as well. I genuinely hope that happens. But I also have to be clear-eyed about where things stand right now. A tool existing is the very first step. Please don't get me wrong, it's a great big step. I don't want to diminish that it took a lot of work and creativity to make that thing happen. It's a giant leap even. But what comes after the research, the policies, the training, the rights, the accountability, that's what actually will make a tool an equitable resource, something that will enable equity. But until all of that is placed as a tool, and that's what we want to turn potential into practice. That part takes time, it takes intention, and it takes just a lot more than the tool itself. So I just finished telling you about all the infrastructure that surrounds AT in schools, the legal rights, the IEP process, the decades of research, so on. All that went into making AT a protected and deliberate part of how we serve students with disabilities. And that is all true. We meant every word. But we also need to be honest here, because if I leave you with only that picture, I'm not giving you a full one. Since we looked behind the curtain a bit on AI, again, as it relates to education, we need to do the same for AT. Having infrastructure in place is not the same as having good infrastructure or infrastructure that works perfectly and benefits absolutely everyone. And there are some persistent, well-documented issues in the world of assistive technology that you are going to encounter in your career. The first and probably most common tension you will encounter is the idea that of assistive technology as a crutch. You are likely to come across this way of thinking, others who have this way of thinking. Maybe from a colleague, maybe from a student's parent, maybe from an administrator, and it usually sounds something like, if we give them that tool, they'll never learn to do it on their own. The classic example of a student with dysgraphia who is given speech-to-text software. The concern is that if the student always uses the tool, they'll never develop their writing skills. Where we come in professionally is in our full understanding of the situation. We know the student, we have an understanding of how assistive technology tools help. We know the student has rights to using them, and everyone has to enable that access to the use. And we also know that writing is a means of expressing knowledge. It is not the knowledge itself. So if the student has a disability that affects their ability to physically produce written text, withholding a tool that would allow them to demonstrate what they actually know is not remediation. It is withholding access. The research has been very clear on this. Assistive technology does not prevent skill development. In many cases, it actually supports it, because a student who can participate, produce work, and experience success is far more likely to keep developing than a student who is frustrated, falling behind, and being asked to repeatedly demonstrate a deficit rather than showing what they are actually capable of. If you remember that highlighter accommodation that I mentioned in the previous slide, for whatever reason, nobody argues that using a highlighter is a crutch. Nobody says a student who uses a highlighter will never learn to read without one. We have to apply the same logic for the highlighter as we do for the AAC device, the speech-to-text software, and the screen reader. They are all tools, and tools exist to provide access. Now, is there a nuance here? Of course. There are situations where the goal is explicitly to build a skill, and tool use needs to be thoughtfully balanced with that goal. That's a clinical and educational conversation worth having on a case-by-case basis, but the default should never be to deny access while waiting for a skill to appear on its own. The second issue is what researchers would call, or do call, the abandonment problem. It is more common than most people realize. Studies have consistently shown that assistive technology abandonment rates are high. The student receives a tool and gets written into the IEP, and then somewhere between the resource room and the general education room, or between September and January, the tool quietly disappears from daily use. Sometimes it's because the tool was never a great match for the student's actual needs in the first place. Sometimes it's because the student didn't receive enough training to feel confident in using it. Sometimes it's stigma. A student doesn't want to look different from their peers. Sometimes it's that the tool worked in one setting, but not other environments where the student actually spends most of their time. There are many reasons. That is an implementation problem, and it is one that we can do something about. The antidote to abandonment is follow through. It's fidelity, and it's checking in, and it's making sure the tool travels with the student across settings. It's making sure the student actually wants to use it and feel supported in doing it. Because a tool that sits in the drawer is not assistive technology. It is a very expensive piece of furniture. And the third big issue in the field of assistive technology is inequity. Now, I also did just share that IDEA gives students the legal rights to assistive technology if it supports their educational needs. And that right exists, and it is incredibly meaningful. But the reality of who actually receives the best tools, the most appropriate evaluations, and the most robust implementation support is not equally distributed, even with a federal law in place. High quality assistive tech, especially high tech AAC devices, can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Districts vary quite a bit in what they are willing to and able to fund and what they will push back on. Families who understand the law, who can access private evaluations, and who have the time and capacity to advocate loudly and persistently tend to get better outcomes from the IEP process than families who do not have these resources. That is not hypothetical. It is documented. And it is a reminder that infrastructure and policy are necessary but not sufficient. The right existing on paper and the right being realized in practice are two different things, which is exactly why your role matters. Knowing the law, knowing what students are entitled to, knowing the need and understanding how learning works, and then most importantly, willing to be the person in the room who says so, that is advocacy. That's a very big part of our jobs in special education. So at their core, both AI and assistive technology are tools. And a tool is only as useful as the person wielding it and the context it's used in. Now, traditionally, assistive tech tools were not built to work with one another. In fact, quite the opposite. Many of the programs and devices we use with students were developed by competing companies with competing systems, and they don't always play nicely with one another. A family might have a device for communication and that has a separate program for reading, and they can use the tool for writing, but it's on the computer. And getting all three to function together in the same classroom or on the same device at the same time, it can be a challenge. That fragmentation has been one of the quiet frustrations of assistive tech implementation for a long time. AI comes in and it takes a different approach. Rather than existing as a standalone competing product, AI is increasingly designed to integrate into tools that already exist, to work within them, enhance them, and connect across them in ways that traditional assistive tech hasn't always been able to do. And that brings a lot of promise. The big caveat, and it's an important one, is that AI integration often comes with additional costs. Paywalls are real. A school or family might be using a free or district licensed version of a tool that works fine for basic functions, but the AI enhanced features sit behind a paid tier that not everyone can access. And we just spent all that time talking about what equity actually requires. So as AI gets woven into existing assistive tech tools, we have to keep asking who gets access to the full versions and who doesn't. Because if the most powerful, most personalized, most adaptive features are only available to students whose families or districts can pay for them, we've recreated the same equity problem just in a new flavor. So we're going to close out with something practical because everything we talked about today, the possibilities, the concerns, the integration, all of it eventually lands on you in a real classroom with real students and real things that can go wrong. The first to name is universal accessibility. We have to come back to our definition of equity just one more time. Equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates those exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. That means when you bring a tool into your classroom, AI powered or not, your first question should not be, is this tool accessible in general? We are in the field of special ed. Our first question needs to be for the individual student. Is this tool accessible for this student who has these specific sets of needs in this environment? That's a whole different set of questions or perspective to take. And we do that for each of our students because that is the individual as part of special education. A tool can check every accessibility box on paper and still not work for the student sitting in front of you. Universal accessibility is the goal, but it requires individual thinking to get there. The second thing is going to be technical challenges. You are going to have them. It just will happen. Devices won't connect, Chromebooks destroyed, students going to be mid-task and the internet crashes and then they crash out. It's going to be a whole thing. Just because these things happen and however frustrating they may be, it is not a reason to avoid technology. My intent here is to tell you, do not let your feelings about tech or AI become the reason a student loses access to support that they may need and benefit from. You have to build your own comfort with the tools first so that when something goes sideways, you're not panicking alongside with them. The last thing here would be student adaptation. Think about how long it typically takes you to learn something new and feel generally comfortable with it. Not just familiar, but comfortable. Now think about your students. Some of them may be faster than you would think. Some of them may be slower. The timeline for them may be longer. It may look messier. There may be resistance and frustration and even regression before there's any progress. That is not necessarily a sign that the tool isn't working. You have to be very evaluative here. It very well could be the same sign that learning is happening and learning takes time. So give it some time. Stay curious and also cautious. Stay informed as you can. And I think importantly, we're trying to stay humble about what we do not know just yet. We're going to keep coming back to that question that should be at the center of all the teaching related work we do. Will this help my students show up more fully, learn more effectively, participate more independently? And if the answer is yes, we might be on the right track here. And if it's no or not yet, then we need to keep adjusting until we get there. That's what we do. That is the job, that's the work, and we are all more than capable of getting it done.